Good afternoon and welcome to the Cardinal HCM 2024 Affordable Care Act Process Forum for Localities. My name is Elizabeth Dessenberg and I will be one of your facilitators today. Our webinar today is scheduled from 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. and we have a lot of information to share with you. So we will go over the ACA process overview, and that will include the ACA Reconciliation Report, validating ACA data, and the certification process for ACA data entry. We will then provide a demo where you can ask some questions and answers and see the process live. We'll go over Cardinal HCM Access, we'll have a question and answer segment, and we'll also provide some additional support, whether that be TLC assistance, Cardinal assistance, or ACA support materials. So without further ado, let's get started.
Good afternoon, this is Sarah Harrell. Thank you all for joining today. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to join us to talk about ACA. So today we're going to do a few things. We are going to run and review the ACA Reconciliation Report. We're going to talk about validating that data and then completing the ACA data entry certification piece. There are two important deadlines for you to remember. You need to run the ACA Reconciliation Report by Friday, December 13th. That's the deadline to run the report for the year. You'll have time after that to continue to review the data, but please submit that report by the 13th. By Friday, December 27th, you'll need to complete the ACA data entry page within Cardinal. If you don't have your ACA data entry page completed, your group will not receive ACA forms. So it's super important to meet both of those deadlines. So let's talk about ACA a little bit. We are making some changes to our processing this year to put more of a focus on preparing you for employee questions about the forms that they will receive. There's one of two forms that employees in your group will receive if Cardinal is handling your ACA reporting. If you have 49 or less employees in your group, they're going to receive what's called Form 1095B. If you have 50 or more employees, they'll receive what's called Form 1095C. The forms are very similar. There's one section that differs. The Form B that goes to the smaller localities really just shows each employee and their dependents and what months of coverage they had. The other form goes into more detail about whether or not coverage was offered and how the employee chose to respond to that offer. The first step in getting ready for your ACA reporting is to run the ACA report. We're going to do all of this in the demo, but we're going to step through the slides first to give you a preview. And then again, we'll go through all of this together when we get to the demo portion. And please remember that this is being recorded. The recording and the deck will be shared with you again after the presentation. The report is in the same location that it's been in previous years. You'll use this navigation printed on the screen to get to the run control page to create this report. These screens you can use when you go to run the report at your convenience. We'll step you through how to fill them out to get the report submitted and the right kind of output that you'd like. And again, we'll do this together during the demo. These screens will show you how to check on the status of the report so that you'll know when the report is finished and available for you. And these screens help you open up the output of the report. You'll be able to refer to these when you're running the reports from your desks. What's different this year is the data that you're going to see on the report. In previous years, you saw the best codes that would show if someone was, full-time or part-time, whether they were enrolled or waived. We're making a change this year to show you the actual data the employees will receive on their ACA forms when they get mailed out at the end of January. This will allow you to help reconcile the data to ensure that the form the employee receives has accurate information on it. The type of data you see on the report will depend on if you are a C form group or a B form group. And again, that's determined by the number of employees. Let's take a closer look at the data. So in this view, you can see that if I'm getting a 1095C I'm going to get 2 lines for each employee. The first line is going to show 2 codes with a slash in between. That's my box 14 and my box 16 values. And that's whether I was offered coverage and whether I enrolled in that coverage. Line 2 is going to show either a yes or no to show if I was covered that month. So the previous ACA report, you would have gotten 1 line for the employee and then 1 line for each dependent. Now you'll get 2 lines for the employee to show the box values and the months of coverage. If you're in groups of 49 or less and you're going to receive that B form, the box value is going to just be populated with that word 1095B because your forms don't include that information. Okay, we'll look at this closer when we get into the system. For the system to be able to display this data to you, the Cardinal team prepares it on a monthly basis. This schedule shows you when the data will be available to you next year. So hold on to this for next year when you start running these reports. We'll let you know today when the report is available for you to run. But generally speaking, next year, a few days into the month, the report will be available. If you're used to running this report now, you'll note that you can only get data through the current date. It doesn't pull any future information, and that remains the same. Once you have that ACA data, it's on you to verify that the data on the report is accurate. We're going to recommend that you look at these 3 reports to accomplish that. The Cardinal Enrollment Report pulls current coverage as of the date you enter. The Benefit Enrollment Changes Report allows you to put a window of time in, and it will pull any coverage changes that happen during that window. And the Base Benefit Audit Consistency Report will pull things like missing SSNs, missing dependent date of birth, if you have a dependent who's covered under more than 1 plan, if you have an employee who's covered as a dependent, it looks for all of those sort of mismatches in policy with our data, and it allows you to pull all of that into one report. The next several slides are going to show you the navigation to each of these reports and how to fill out the page to submit it. We'll click through these now, but again, you'll have a copy of this deck when you go to run them. And we'll look at running these reports when we go into the demo in Cardinal later. For now, we'll just let you know that there are pages in this deck for you to help you get all 3 of these reports run. Okay. And then the last piece of our demo is we're going to look at the data entry certification process. There's a page that you'll navigate to in Cardinal that will ask you to sort of certify some information. What contact information should be on the form, and then some counts about your employee population. And then at the end, you have to say that you certify that the data has been entered correctly. It's important to do this. If your data isn't certified, it doesn't get selected by the process that prints the ACA forms. So we'll again touch on that December 27th deadline to ensure that your group gets their forms printed in a timely fashion. TLCs may need to enter a safe harbor code. It's a very small group of TLCs who have to do this, so we'll touch on it briefly in the demo, and then we'll reach out to you directly after the forum with more information if this applies to you. For the majority of those of you on the call, safe harbor will not apply. But everyone will need to put in counts and then click that certification step. All right, let's switch over into the Cardinal system and we'll be able to demo some of these things for you. So I am logged into Cardinal into one of our test environments as a benefits administrator. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to the ACA Reconciliation Report. And again, please remember that all of these paths to navigate are within the deck and you'll have them when you go to do this. But let's take a look at how that looks. The first thing I want to say is that you're going to click on this compass icon in the top right of your screen to pull up the menu. You'll get options displayed here, your recently visited, your favorites, and the menu. We're going to select the menu. It'll take you to where you were last, but I'm going to click on the menu to take me back to the beginning as if I had freshly logged in. The first thing I need to do is click on the benefits folder. Then I need to click on the ACA annual processing folder. Then the ACA preparation folder. And that's where you can find the ACA Reconciliation Report. We'll click on that. To run a report in Cardinal, you need to have a run control ID. We have a detailed job aid that will link in this deck that steps you through running a report if this is not something you're familiar with. Each time you go to run a report, you have to put in a name for like the run instructions that you're using in the system. Some people use their initials, some people use the name of the report. For today, I'm going to go ahead and just use the year. I'll click search and it'll bring up my run ID. We're going to test today with company E15. If this was a brand new run ID, when I came in, everything would be blank. So I would type in my company here, and then I would come down to the as of date section. I like to click on the calendar and then click the date. This report will only run through today's date, and that's not a change. So in the past, you could only ever get information through today when you ran this report. Once I have my company and my as of date, I'm going to click the run button. Because we're using a new process request, it had to take a second to save that ID. I'm going to change my format of the output report from text to XLS, and that's going to create an Excel file for me. This is detailed within the deck for you. Now that I know the report's going to run and it's going to create an Excel web sheet for me, I'm going to go ahead and say, okay. Now you'll notice this popped up on my screen. It's a process instance number. That lets me know that the report has been successfully submitted to the system and it is running the report for me right now. To watch the status and pull the output, I'll click on the process monitor link. And you can see two things show in this list with the exact same process name. I ran this report earlier today to make sure one was finished for us to look at. The one that I just submitted is running on top. The run status is processing. I can click the refresh button and then, oh, look, it just popped over to success. Something you'll notice if you're used to running this report in the past is that this report used to take a very long time to run. We would often advise people to kick it off at the end of their day and it would be ready for them in the morning. The performance has been greatly improved and you'll see the report finish in just a matter of minutes for very large groups and seconds for small groups. So now that the run status is success, I know the report is ready and out there for me to select. To get to my output, I'm going to click this details link. I'm going to click this view log trace link. And this Excel file that's listed as a link in the center of my screen, that's my output for this report. I'll be able to click on this and the file will be downloaded. All of these steps, again, are in the deck, and they're also in the Cardinal job aid on how to run a report. I'm going to open up a version of the report that I ran earlier today, and let's take a look at that. So this is what the report would look like if my group had 50 or more employees and we were anticipating getting 1095-C forms. The report has all of the same columns that it did previously: company, department, EIN, SSN, employee ID. It shows name information. For dependents, it shows their date of birth if it's stored within the system. We also show you the value of the health care provided to this employee. That value is an estimate. If you need true healthcare value numbers, look to your payroll system. Previously, in this first line, you would have seen the old best codes, full-time / enrolled, full-time / waived. Now what you're seeing are the actual ACA codes that will show up on the form that employees will receive in the mail. And so that's the change we've made, to show you that ACA data before the employees get it in the mail so that you're prepared to answer questions. You used to get one line per employee and then one line for all their dependents. Right now, what you're going to get is one line to show that offer of coverage / the enrollment, right? So 1A, if my memory serves me correct, says I was a full-time employee for that month, and 2C means the employee enrolled in the coverage. The definition of all of those codes is available on the IRS website, and we've linked exactly to that spot on the IRS for you in the deck. I can tell you that if you Google ACA codes, you'll find different cheat sheets that different people have placed out there, but the best place to get the definition of these codes is directly from the IRS. The second line for the employee is going to be either a yes or no. And this lines up. This employee had 2C for all of these months that you see. And then it also says, yes, they were enrolled in coverage for all of those months. You'll note that December is left blank. When I ran this report to prepare for the forum, it was still in November. And so the report wouldn't pull a future month for me. And that's how the report has always worked. You'll be doing this in December, so you'll get a full 12 months worth of data. So I get a line for my employee, and then I get a second line for my employee to show covered months. And then all of my employees' dependents will list after that. And they're just going to get a yes, no column, yes, no row, showing if they were covered or not. And so for this situation, this first employee, the spouse, John, was covered every month that the employee was covered. Okay. If we look at another employee on this output, employee ID 2, this is all the same group, right? So we see Tom had his coverage. He was a 1A, 2C in January and the same code for February. And then all of Tom's dependents list below. If there were birth dates in the system, they will pull here. And then the yes or no for those dependents. This is the data that will show on the form that Tom gets, okay? All right, if I was in a smaller group and we only had 49 or less employees, my output is going to look a little bit different. Let's scroll over and take a look at the output this time. So for this employee that I'm highlighting, right, we've got our employee Betty, and Betty has a few dependents listed in the system. Because Betty is in a smaller group and is anticipating to receive a 1095B form, that is going to display in the first line for Betty because there isn't that offer of coverage information on her form. Her form is just going to list out her and her dependents and a yes or no for each month to show if they were covered or not. Okay, so that's the main difference between the two groups, and you're going to see slightly different information on the page. It's important to remember that whether the form that your employee is going to receive, that is going to come from the ACA certification page that we're going to touch on next. When we are preparing this data for you now, we're doing it based on our best guess, and it's a count. So when the system ran for the group that I'm looking at, it counted less than 50 employees, so it's projecting a 1095B. If the BA for this group went to the data entry page and said, we have more than 50, then that group is going to get the other form. So it's important when you're looking at this data to be in sync. And if you think that what is shown on the report is not accurate, that would be a ticket to VCCC for us to sort of take a look and see what things need to change. Okay. All right, so let's just pause for a second. We've stepped through running the ACA Recon report. It's the same process to run the report as it was in years prior, the same navigation. It's the same way to get the output. It's just the content of that output is different. Once you've gotten that content, then you need to be able to reconcile it. You need to look at the reports that we listed in the deck, the benefit enrollment changes report, the Cardinal enrollment change, excuse me, it's the Cardinal enrollment report, it's the enrollment changes report, and that base benefit consistency audit that will help you determine if the information on your report is accurate or not. And again, all of those items are detailed with their navigations and how to run them in the deck. We can step to one now briefly. If I am at my main menu, I'm going to pick the benefits folder. I'm going to pick reports. And then I'm going to pick the Cardinal enrollment report. We can reuse the run ID that we created for ACA. Whoops, sorry. I thought that one had saved. Let's see. We'll add a new value. We'll go with 2024 again. And so this one's a very quick one to run. It just wants to know what date do you want to run this report as of. You can put in a business unit, you can put in a company, those are not necessary. It'll run for whatever group you have security access to. And then when the output of this is prepared, you'll be able to see a full listing of all of the employees in your group and all of the coverages that they've elected. So this would be great to bump up against the ACA Recon report to make sure that the coverage is accurately reflected on that report. Okay. So for the next part of our demo, we're going to slip over to the ACA data entry page. I'm going to navigate there. Again, I'll click the menu to go back to the beginning in case that's where you're starting from. From the menu, we'll click on benefits. We'll click on employer information, and then we'll click on ACA data entry. As I said, we're testing today. We're going to use our test company E15. So I'll write that in the this company field here. The applicable large employer is just what ACA calls company, and I'll hit enter. I'll be returned a row for all the years that we've done ACA reporting with Cardinal. And then I'll select the 2024 year. Now this is the page that you need to complete by Friday, December 27th. That is crucial to ensure that your employees get their forms printed in a timely fashion. If they are not certified when the file is created of the forms that need to be printed, they will not be included in that file. So let's take a look. So a contact employee ID was populated on here when I pulled this page up. And that's because that's the employee ID that was used as a contact when I did my forms last year. So if you're a new group this year, that would be empty. You would just click on the lookup icon, the magnifying glass, and you would enter in the employee ID, the employee number of the person that you want to be the contact for these forms. This contact phone number is going to display on the form as who to call for help. So if you are a large TLC and you have a group phone number for your benefits team, you would want to put that number there. If I were to look at this and say, ooh, that 555-1212 is not the best number for us, I want to change that. All I would need to do is simply remove the employee ID from this field, tab out of it, and it opens up these two fields to edit. I can change this. If we want Bill to be the contact person for our forms this year, we can update the name and we can change that phone number to go directly to Bill instead. Okay. The ACA reporting indicator is set for you based on how you filled out your TLC data sheets back for the either October or July renewals. You're going to be asked in general, did you have 50 or more employees? Yes or no? And how you answer that question, that will determine whether your group gets the 1095C or the 1095B. So if the answer is yes, we're a large group, we're going to get the more detailed form with the offers of coverage and the acceptance in that box 1416. If you say no, we're a smaller group, then they'll just get the months of coverage, yes or no information. Okay. If the safe harbor code requested checkbox is set, this would apply to a very small group of TLCs. This was set behind the scenes by OHB and the TLC teams. If you have that set when you come to this page, we'll send you more information about that after the forum. Most of you are going to come in, that checkbox is not set. You don't need to check it. You just need to scroll down to the count section. You need to give a total full-time count and a total employee count for each month. We recommend that you pull this information as of the first day of the month and that you do that for both counts. So as of January 1, how many full-time employees did you have? As of January 1, how many total employees did you have? Your total employees are going to include, part-timers, anybody who's in your population head count that is not full-time. As I go to fill this out, the system is going to do some checks for me. If I said that I had 8 full-time employees, but only 7 total employees, and I tried to save the page, it's going to say your full-time count can't be greater than your total, right? And that makes sense. So let's go in. We've said that we are a smaller group, right? We're a no for the 50 or more question. We're on a smaller section. So let's go in and say that we had, we'll go in and we'll key these for each month, right? We had 8 full-time employees until March where we added 2 more. I'm just going to key these in for each month. Using the tab to go in between all the fields. And now I need to come in and type in my total employee counts, right? And so again, those have to be larger than what I have for my full-time. Okay? Keyboard is not, doesn't like the 2, so I'm going to go with 19 for each month. Okay. So now that's all of the information that's really going to be gathered from you on this page. Your total full-time count, your total employee count. I can save at this point and I can leave the page. I can come back from lunch, right? I can come in, I can say, oh, HR dropped off a new headcount report for me and they were able to hire somebody at the end of the year. So our December count was really 22. I can make any changes that I want, right? Up until I certify the page. I'm going to do that by clicking this I agree button. Right? And this is saying that I certify that all of this information is accurate and we authorize DHRM to send this information to the IRS on our behalf. You'll note when I clicked on that, the certifier name and date was populated and it's looking at my user ID and it's pulling my information from the system and populating that in for me. The second I save this information, you'll note that everything is now grayed out. I can't change the counts. Right? As soon as I'm certified, I can't make any edits to this page. If I got to this point and I certified and I realized we were missing a count, our numbers were off, you would need to reach out to either the TLC group or put in a VCCC ticket to get this information updated after the fact. Okay. So this page where you're going to communicate a few really important pieces of information, the contact name and phone number, the count, the total count, in, whether you're a 1095B or a 1095C by this 50 question, and then the counts for each month. This all needs to be completed by Friday, December 27th. It's crucial that we get that information in by that date. If you're not in by that date, you'll definitely hear from the TLC group because your forms won't be able to be printed on time. Forms must be postmarked by January 31st. So we have a very tight turnaround to create the file that includes all of this printing information to get it printed in time to be mailed out with that important postmark date. Okay, we're going to take a pause here and answer some questions.
All right, Sarah. The first question we have is, if I have 3 group numbers and one of the group numbers has more than 50 employees and the other 2 have less than 50, will we have a 1095C for the larger group and 1095Bs for the smaller groups?
So this is going to be based on your EIN. If you have one EIN, even if you have 4 groups split under it, it's one EIN doing your ACA filing. And so you would consider the total number of all of your groups. If you had a different EIN, you wouldn't just be different departments within Cardinal, you'd have another company code for that group. So if you just have one company code, then you know that count all of your groups under that company code and consider that when you're doing both the 50 or more and each of the monthly counts underneath. So if you had 2 groups in that EIN, you need to give me the full-time employee count for both of those groups.
We have a couple of questions that have come in about council members or board members. Would these types of folks be included with the total employee count?
If they are being paid through your system and offered benefits through the state's program, then yes. And they would be counted in your total employee count, not your full-time count.
Okay. I have a few waived employees who are formatted in our ACA report like last year and not this new way.
So we made the change to the report late last night so that we wouldn't have anybody seeing the new data before we were had a chance to explain it to you. So you'll want to run the report again today, we'll put out a message on the message board when the report is ready to run, but I believe it should be available shortly. And that is when you'll see all that new information available to you.
Would town council members be considered as part-time? They get one check per month.
So they would be, if they're getting paid from you and being offered benefits from you, you would include them in your total employee count.
All right, a couple more.
And sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I did get confirmation that all of the data is available and ready out there. So as soon as you get off the forum, you can kick off that ACA Recon report and you will see the new codes and values.
Excellent. This certification only counts employees with insurance or all total employees with or without insurance?
That's a great question. This page has nothing to do with coverage. It's just counts. So when you're looking at the 50 or more or less question, it's how many employees do we have, not how many employees are covered. And when you give me your total full-time count, we need to know purely the total number of employees that are full-time and the total number of employees. It doesn't have anything to do with whether they enrolled in coverage or waived here. For this page, it's just about employment.
Okay. In years prior, we have submitted or sent correction forms either by fax or email. Will this be the same protocol for this year, or do we enter corrections in Cardinal itself? You'll continue to send them by fax or email.
Yeah, once you certify that page, you won't be able to make any corrections, so you'll have to communicate those over to the TLC group. But up until that point, you please try to do your certification within Cardinal. Go to this page, enter in all of your counts, do your certification, and do that by the 27th. If after you've done that certification step, you need a change, yes, you would send those in the way you did in the past.
I think there's still some confusion over what to put in this page. So we have another question. If they are not offered benefits, we do not need to include them, correct? Whether they're offered benefits or not, it's total employee count.
Yes.
Whether or not they're offered.
That's correct. It's just total employee count. You may have part-timers that you don't offer coverage to, but they are employees. So you would count those in your total counts. Some of the special positions, if they are paid from you, then they would be included in that total count. Anyone you consider an employee. Okay.
Yes, there was also a question that came in related to issues where they may have kicked off one ACA reconciliation report. It hadn't had a chance to complete, but they kicked off another, and that one went into error.
Yeah, the system doesn't like it when you are using that same run control name to do more than one thing at the same time. So if you go to run a report and you see error in that process monitor, that was when you'd want to reach out to the Cardinal team. Use a VCCC ticket to reach the PPS support team, and we can talk you through the way to get that cleared up so that you can successfully run the report again. But for the most part, this report, I know this used to be a bear to run. It would take a very long time to complete. You saw it complete for E15, which is a good sized TLC in this setup, and it finished in just a few seconds. So give it a chance to finish running. It won't take nearly as long as it did, but anytime that you see an error on a page or on running a report, that's when you'd want to reach out to the VCCC address and talk to the Cardinal team. And we'll have detailed instructions on that within the deck as well. Okay, why don't we just run through this again and to recap. So I'm going to start again with the navigation from the beginning to get to the report. So it's the benefits folder, and then it's the ACA annual processing folder, and then the ACA preparation folder. and then the ACA Reconciliation Report. We'll pull up the run ID that we're using. We're going to enter our company and the date, and we're going to click the run button.
Only one time.
Only one time. That's right. We're just going to submit it once. We're going to change this format to Excel and say, okay. I know it's running. I don't need to click the run button again. My hint is that I now have this process instance, right? The system is using this number behind the scenes to run the report. I'll click on the process monitor and I'll see the report is now out there processing. My other two runs are still available to me. They're still out there in success. I can still click on the details tab, the view log trace tab, and I can still see my output. We'll refresh the screen again, and there you go. That one went to success. If I look on the details, it'll tell me exactly how quick it ran. So this, began at 2:37 and it was finished at 2:38. So the report really runs very fast now. Just give it a second, click that refresh button, and you'll see the status update as soon as it says success and posted. Then that details link will be available for you to get to the output. So we're going to run that report. We're going to look at our output. We're going to look at these codes. And you'll receive an e-news today that will give you a little bit of help on these codes. But again, the IRS website is really the best place to get your definitions. Here's one we can look at for a second, right? We talked about how 1A, 2C meant I was an employee in January and I enrolled in coverage. If I scroll over to June, I can see this employee switched over to 1H/2A. And I know that 1H means I was not an employee this month, and 2A means I was not enrolled in coverage. And that's why my Y no switched from the Y to the N. So what we're asking you to do is run this report and then look at this data and take a look and see, does this reflect the coverage that you had people enrolled in within the system? I would say the most important thing for you to check when you're checking this is that everyone that you expect to get an ACA form is in this report, okay? If someone is not on the list, then the system is not preparing a form for them and there could be something wrong. I would put in a VCCC ticket at that point to get some clarification on why the person isn't in your output. It could be that this person had a bad value somewhere in the system that we need to correct. Or it could be that this person just isn't entitled to receive a form. It's important to remember that Cardinal does not report Medicare coverage on ACA. So if you have an employee who turned 65 this year in the middle of the year and enrolled in a Medicare plan, that enrollment will not be displayed on this form because we do not report Medicare coverage, okay? If I have an employee who is still full-time working, but has been in Medicare all year, that person would not receive a form, okay? No Medicare coverage gets reported on any ACA forms produced out of the Cardinal system. Similarly, COBRA coverage does not get reported out of this report. That happens separately, but you will not see any COBRA coverage on this report. COBRA got outsourced, right, to another vendor, and so that reporting happens differently. Okay, so really the most important thing when you go to look at the recon data is that everybody who you want to get a form is listed here. Okay. All right, so once I've got my form, I'm going to check that the data on here makes sense and looks accurate for my group. And once I'm comfortable with that data, then I'm going to go do my certification piece.
Can we go back? I'm sorry, just to the
Sure.
report quickly to answer two questions that are coming in. One question is, if I'm looking at this and I notice somebody's name who shouldn't be on there, they terminated long back. What is the process for TLCs?
Yeah, so for TLCs, I would submit a ticket to VCCC.
Well, they need to send it to the TLC.
Okay. Okay, sorry. So if you see someone on this report who's long terminated, who should not be on there, then chances are their coverage still looks active in Cardinal. And so you'll need to send an email to the TLC group and they'll research the coverage and make sure it's properly updated.
All right, what about if an employee waived the whole year? What would that look look like on
Sure.
the report?
So if I waive the whole year and I'm in a smaller group with 49 or less employees, I'll be on the report if I was a full-time employee who could have enrolled in benefits, right? And I will just say no, right? I did not enroll in coverage. If I'm in a larger group, then it's going to, that line number 1 for each employee, it's going to show that they were offered coverage, right? It's going to say 1A, I was an employee this month. And then it's going to show that I didn't pick any coverage by showing a blank. Okay. So it is a valid combination to see, 1A/blank, those employees did not pick their coverage. And that e-news that you get will give you a little bit of a hint about those codes and what they mean. And again, as we said earlier, this is a little bit different if you're in a safe harbor group. We will send you special information after the call. That's a very small population. You'll know if you're safe harbor when you pull up your ACA data form and it's checked for you. Okay. Okay.
We do have a couple more questions. If we have corrections, by what date should we send them in so they will be reflected on the report so we can certify?
So ideally, by the 13th, you'll have run their report and sent all of your corrections of the data over. So when we talk about corrections here, we're talking about, I ran this ACA Recon report and there are people on here who shouldn't be. There's, I know someone, term coverage, but they're still showing enrolled. Maybe somehow that information wasn't transmitted over. Then you would need to send that over to the TLC group so they can adjust the coverage in the system. And they would like to receive those by the 13th, by Friday, December 13th. So consider that run date sort of your run and wrap up date for the ACA Recon report. If you need to make a correction to the certification page, that also needs to happen very quickly. The 27th is your deadline to finish the certification. Any changes after that need to be received within the week to that TLC email box. Otherwise, we won't be able to update the forms and the files in time.
We have a group that joined mid-year and they are asking how their information will be reported.
So Cardinal does not do partial year reporting for localities, so this will not apply to them. They won't have a data sheet out there for them to complete. We only put data sheets out there to complete if you were a full year and you're using Cardinal to do your ACA reporting. So if you're a partial year, your ACA reporting will happen with independent of Cardinal, and you don't have to go through this process. I'm going to navigate to that page just for a second. So again, that's from the menu. We go to the benefits folder, the employer information folder, and the ACA data entry folder. If I were to put in my company today and click enter, if I don't get anything back or I don't see the year 2024, then the TLC group thinks that I am either a partial year, I'm no longer participating. We don't think you're participating in the process this year. So if you don't see your company in a 2024 year here, and you think that's wrong, you would want to reach out to the TLC inbox. Otherwise, it means we think that you're a partial year, you're not reporting with us. And then once I'm in here, right, if on my TLC data sheet, I could have said, we're not participating with ACA with you, we like to do it on our own, then my ACA reporting checkbox would be turned off. Again, we think you're not participating in this. You would want to reach out to TLC if you think that is not accurate either. Okay, and then again, I have until the 27th to get all of this data put in, and once I click that save button, that's locked down.
All right, Sarah, while you're on this page, if the employee counts are as of the first day of each month, then it would not capture the new hires in December. Is that correct?
So you have to just make a choice, right? We have to have one consistent way of looking at this. Some companies choose to do the first day of the month. Some companies choose to do the last day of the month. We just have to be consistent in the way that we do it. And so we're advising you that you pick the first day of the month. And so if you hired somebody in the middle of December, they would not be included in your total employee count or your full-time count if they were a full-time employee. That's fine. I'm going to speak on one quick topic before I turn it over to Elizabeth, and that has to do with the access. During the demo, you noticed me navigate throughout the system. I clicked on the navigation compass in the corner, and I was able to click on a menu and then benefits and find all these different folders. If you are able to get into the system, but you can't see any of those things, your access has been revoked. Elizabeth is going to talk to you about what to do if your access has been revoked.
So if your access has been revoked, that means you have not logged into Cardinal within the past 90 days and you can't review any of those pages like Sarah mentioned. So you will need to submit a locality security access form to tlc@dhrm.virginia.gov. And the TLC group at DHRM will review and approve your request and forward it to the security team for processing. It's important that you go ahead and submit this access form because it can take some time. And we know this December 13th date is fast approaching.
That's right. Yeah, we would highly recommend that everyone log into the system today to confirm their access. If you can't log in, or if you can't navigate around once you get in, you definitely need to reach out and get your security reestablished as soon as possible to meet these very crucial deadlines.
Right, and once your access has been established or updated, you will receive an email from the Cardinal security team that will notify you of your access being reinstated. So if you don't know how to log into Cardinal to check if you have access, in your web browser, you can type in my.cardinal.virginia.gov and be sure to bookmark this for easy access next time. You will need a valid email address to access or log into Cardinal. If you are a new user and you need to register, you'll have to complete a one-time registration with Cardinal and establish an Okta multi-factor authentication process. To successfully register your Cardinal account, you will need the following information. You will need an email address, your 11-digit Cardinal employee ID number, and the last 4 digits of your social security number. If you do not know your Cardinal employee ID number, you can reach out to your HR administrator or someone at your locality. If you need any instructions to help you walk through the Cardinal registration, you can look at the Cardinal registration guide for active employees. Do we have any further questions for Sarah or the Cardinal team or teams?
Yeah, just another question that came in. Are COBRA participants listed either on the report or as part of the certification process?
Great. So let's look at the certification process. So there I'm listing my full-time employees and my total employees. If I have separated and have COBRA coverage, I would no longer be considered an employee. So you're not going to include them in your counts on the certification page. COBRA coverage is not stored within the Cardinal system, and so those employees will not have that coverage reflected in their Cardinal produced ACA forms. So you won't see them on the ACA Recon report either. If I was an employee for half the year and I separated and picked up COBRA coverage, for that first half of the year that I was covered as an active employee, I'll be on the report, but then it won't show any coverage information after that.
Can you talk about individuals who are enrolled in Medicare as well?
Sure. So again, Medicare information is not transmitted on Cardinal produced ACA forms. So if you've got an employee who has been in a Medicare plan for the entire calendar year, they will not get an ACA form from Cardinal. They should not be on your ACA Recon report. If you have someone who turned 65 in the middle of this year and transitioned to a Medicare plan, you'll only see their coverage prior to the Medicare enrollment on your ACA form. In the employee counts, they are still active employees. They're full-time employees. You would count them in your full-time count and in your total count. They just don't get forms from Cardinal for their Medicare coverage. Medicare is handled differently. Okay, any other questions?
Okay, moving on.
Okay.
So if you have questions about your ACA reconciliation report values, any assistance determining data for certification or to make corrections after you certify, please contact TLC. We've got the email addresses listed here, as well as the phone number. And you also have the local choice e-news list, then that will include all the latest updates and messages from TLC. And if you need any help with a Cardinal page or technical questions or login issues or Cardinal functions, that's when you can contact Cardinal. And to do this, please email vCCC@vita.virginia.gov and include Cardinal in the subject line. We've also given you guys some ACA support materials. We have a brand new ACA data entry job aid for localities, and that will give you detailed steps for completing the ACA certification process. We've also included the VA contacts that provides an overview of the benefits administration contacts page and guidance on how to update contact information. And the reports for the ACA are highlighted at the beginning of this deck. Those are the ones that Sarah spoke about briefly and we walked through our demo. We also have the benefits reports catalog, and that includes reports and queries for the benefits functional area. And if you need help running a report, you can use the NAV 225 generating an HCM report job aid. If you have any questions about the indicator codes, please look at the IRS webpage. It'll have all of the indicator codes for boxes 14 and 16 values. Well, thank you for attending today. If you still have any questions, please reach out to Cardinal via submitting a ticket and we will help you. Have a great day.